Marlins have gotten used to coming into Citi Field and coming away with nothing. 13 of the Mets' Major League high, 16 shutouts have come at Citi Field. Now it's up to the guys on the offense to add a few runs to the stew. At Citi Field in New York, the New York Mets play the Colorado Rockies. Mets baseball is presented in HD by IOTV. Get your HD free with IOTV. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you tonight as the Mets play the middle game of their series against the Colorado Rockies. The Mets won 1-0 last night. The second time in their last 3 games that they've won 1-0. And in each case, a very clean ninth inning from Francisco Rodriguez put the game to bed. K-Rod is on a great roll.
Well, he really is. He's on an outstanding roll. The hitters in their last 22 at-bats have not got a hit off Rodriguez. And, boy, I think he's recreated himself, not going for the strikeout as much. He's had a great command of his fastball, and that has really set up his other breaking pitches and his changeup. But last night it was interesting because he followed Takahashi, who had a nice, clean 8th inning. So it'd be nice to see Takahashi as the 8th inning man and K-Rod keep it up.
Takahashi is Sancho Panza to K-Rod's Don Quixote. Meanwhile, tonight for the Mets, John Neese, who pitched brilliantly in Philadelphia's last time out, only to see the bullpen let one get away, tries for another good outing tonight.
Well, he's had an outstanding rookie campaign. A no decision in his last start. He was outstanding. 6 times he's gone 7 innings and hasn't given up more than a run, having one of the better rookie campaigns for a left-hander in Mets history, but he's going to have to be on top of his game going against Jeff Francis tonight. 55 wins for the Rockies. He missed all of last season with a bad shoulder. Those 55 wins are 3rd in Rockies history. 4-4 this year as he works his way back.
So it's the Ohio Neese against the Canadian Francis. 2 lefties on a nice night in New York. Mets trying to make it 2 straight wins. It's been a while. All the action on SNY. By Geico, by AT&T, rethink possible. By Frostbrewed Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. By PPG Pittsburgh Paints, trusted by generations of painters and homeowners for over 100 years. Nobody knows paint like PPG Pittsburgh Paints. By your local tri-state area Audi dealers. And by Hospital for Special Surgery. Get to Citi Field Saturday, August 21st at 8 p.m. for Billy Joel, The Last Play at Shea movie premiere. Tickets are on sale now at 507tixx.com. Here's your Toshiba around the majors this afternoon. The Cardinals made it a sweep of the Reds. You think Brandon Phillips regrets anything? Adam Wainwright, 7 innings, allowed just 2 hits. He's now 17-6 with a 1.99 ERA. The Braves had Billy Wagner blow a save in the bottom of the ninth. No matter, 6 in the ninth, including a Brian McCann grand slam in the 10th to beat the Astros 8-2. And Ryan Rayburn contributed a 2-run homer in the 6th. Detroit beat Tampa Bay 3-2. The Rays at the moment a game behind the Yankees in the American League East. John Neese walking with defiance. In from the bullpen, ready to face the Rockies. Kids are ready too. First pitch coming right up. For the Colorado Rockies tonight. Same top 4 in the lineup as last night. Different 5 through 8. Melvin Moore, the former Met, gets to start at third base. Ryan Spilborgh's in right as Jim Tracy loads up his lineup with right-hand hitters, as many as possible, against John Neese.
There's Jonathan's numbers brought to you by Verizon. Nice 7-5 1-loss record. Should have a double-digit in wins by this time. It didn't walked 5 people in his last start. He's going to have to watch out for that. But an outstanding start against the Phillies in his last start, a no decision.
Beautiful run in the first inning of that game and no more.
Selects his Mets defense. Pagan in left field. Beltran Francoeur with 9 assists this season. Right, Reyes Castillo, and Mike Hessman, who gets his 3rd start at first base. And Henry Blanco this year has thrown out 11 of 22 would-be base stealers, 50%. Outstanding.
Rockies, with their loss last night, slipped into 4th place in the National League West, a half game behind the Dodgers and now 7.5 behind the Padres. The Mets and Rockies predicaments pretty well parallel each other right now.
The same kind of team. They are outstanding at home but cannot win on the road.
That's been true for most of the Rockies' history, playing in the Mile High of Denver. Dexter Fowler takes the first pitch of the night, up and away for ball one, and we're underway. Fowler 1 for 4 last night, hitting .244 for the year. Switch hitter, much better from the right side of the plate than he is from the left. And he's quickly behind 2-0. Ronnie mentioned 5 walks in his last start. John has averaged 3.2 walks per 9 innings. Behind on Fowler 3-0. Todd Helton hitting second in the order these days, and then Carlos Gonzalez. Helton and Gonzalez, the only 2 left-handed bats in the Rockies lineup tonight. There's the first strike of the game. John Neese with 7 wins, tied for second among National League rookies. Only Jaime Garcia of the Cardinals has more. Garcia's 110. And it's also surprisingly, I didn't know this till I looked at the numbers today, tied for second among National League rookies in strikeouts. 3-2, bounce past the mound, and there's Luis Castillo to play it. And he throws out the speedy Fowler, 1 away. You know, the Rockies have always suffered when they've moved away from First Mile High Stadium and then Coors Field. You get so comfortable hitting in that mile-high environment where the curveball maybe doesn't break as much and the ball sails so much better, and well, it's been ever thus. Best at home and worst or close to it on the road.
It makes it interesting for a manager, doesn't Jim Tracy, that maybe your expectations on the road have to be less?
Well, he and his offensive players had a meeting not all that long ago to talk about their struggles on the road. But I think there's very little that you can do about it in this sense. Hitters are just comfortable hitting in Colorado.
Same as Citizens Bank Park. Some of the small ballparks, absolutely. Gonzalez last night would have had 2 home runs to left field easily.
But I think also just the fact, and I don't know if you ever actually pitched in a mile-high environment, but the fact that you can't throw a breaking ball the same way, it doesn't break the same way in the mountain-high climate. Reyes on the backhand easily throws out Helton for the second out. Reyes able to smile widely, making the same play that he booted a couple of nights ago. There's the ensuing record based on those numbers for the Rockies.
Well, this number right here, Mets have the same number of wins, 22, but they have 37 losses.
How did you do that?
I'm telling you, I'm learning things over here.
You've been watching Keith.
If you can just take care of the next 2 or 3 innings, I'll have this thing down pat.
Here's the National League's leading hitter, Carlos Gonzalez, hitting at .326, won 1 for 4 last night with an opposite field double. Tied for 5th in the league in home runs, tied for 3rd in RBIs, 2nd in the league in hits, 2nd in slugging percentage. The 24-year-old having a fabulous year. And he tries to drop down a bunt with Wright playing back and off the line. That's interesting. With 2 out and nobody on. He's
such a power hitter. He can't even bunt it soft. He almost bunted it to third base.
And the thing about it is, it's not as though he gives away anything against lefties. 11 of his 25 home runs this year have come off left-handed pitching. And the curveball bounced to the right side. Nice big hop for Castillo to handle, and a very fine first inning for Neese. After a 3-0 opening count, 3 straight ground balls. And as with the Rockies, it's the bottom of the batting order that has changed drastically with the left-hander on the mound. Hessman, Francoeur, Blanco, and Castillo, none of whom played last night, are in there. And so is Carlos Beltran in the cleanup spot tonight after sitting last night, taking on the veteran lefty Jeff Francis.
Well, coming off shoulder surgery, here's the numbers presented to you by Toyota for Jeff Francis. 4-4, 4.67, only 19 walks in his 86 2/3 innings pitch.
Jose Reyes leads off and takes ball one. Reyes drove in the only run of the game last night with a sacrifice fly in the 7th off Ubaldo Jimenez. And Francis falls behind his opening batter 2-0.
Well, unlike Ed Rapuano, who was behind home plate yesterday, Phil Cuzzy, very smaller strike zone so far.
Deadening the bunt, and Iannetta can't throw out Reyes. A bunt single for Reyes to start the opening inning.
Well, this is not how you draw it up, but he got a little lucky here. Once you get it in the air, and if no one can catch it, it'll die right in that grass. And Iannetta had to go out and get it. By the time he got it, and the spin, no chance to get Reyes, even from the right-hand side.
Something we have not seen a lot of from Jose, particularly as a right-hand batter. So he's aboard, and here's Pagan. Angel took an 0 for last night. A little overmatched at times last night by Ubaldo Jimenez, something we really haven't seen all season. Back at the 2-hole tonight after hitting 3rd last night. Angel still 7th in the National League in batting, hitting at .307. Reyes with 21 steals this year. 2nd on the club behind Pagan and 7th in the league. And Pagan bluffing a bunt with Mora playing back at 3rd.
Well, I think with a veteran Mora at 3rd base, obviously there was a game plan by the Mets to try to get the ball down and make Mora make some plays.
Gone swinging, and he hits one deep to left. Back goes Gonzalez to the track at the wall. It's out of here! Angel Pagan with a 2-run homer, and just like that, the Mets grab a 2-0 lead. Number 10 for Angel Pagan.
Boy, you love to see those top 2 in the order. Speed and power. Angel Pagan is not overmatched tonight. Gets a little bit of a changeup up in the strike zone. A little out front, but he got the good part of the bat on the baseball. Way out of here.
So Pagan with his 10th, his 3rd as a right-hand batter. And 2 batters in, the Mets have a 2-0 lead. Here's David Wright, and he takes ball one.
What's Jeff Francis' reaction to this ball? He's only given up 6 home runs so far this year, but he knew that was out of there.
Imagine where it would have gone at Coors Field. For every home run hit at Citi Field this season, Stuart Rohr and Kinray's Home Runs for Charity program will donate $1,000 to the Mets Foundation. Kinray has donated $36,000 so far in 2010. David really struggling right now. 2 for his last 29, but leads the league in hitting against lefties, and in particular against Jeff Francis, 6 for 9 with 3 home runs. But Francis gets him with a breaking ball. That's the first out.
What's interesting about Pagan, the ILTV pitch differential, the ball might be up a little bit, but it's more outside than the catcher Iannetta wanted it. And still Pagan, because it was a changeup, able to get the bat out in front and elevate that ball.
So now here's Beltran. Carlos came up as a pinch hitter last night. It was intentionally walked. 1 hit in his last 16 at bats. Has looked better as a right-hand batter than he has as a left-hand hitter. But still feeling his way. Jeff Francis missed all of last year and then the first 6 weeks of this season, coming back from shoulder surgery. Behind the bag, playing it deep. Mora, the long throw is right on target. Nice play by Mora to get Beltran 2 down.
Well, tough play here from Melvin, but he makes it and makes it look easy. Right on that line. Looks it into the glove. See See that plant with that right foot? And straight over the top.
So 2 out and nobody on. Now Mike Hessman getting the start at first base tonight against the left-hander. The 4th start for Hessman, who's 3 for 16 as a Met. And he drives one deep toward the left field corner. It hooks and goes just foul. At home run distance, Hessman just missed. So the Mets hitting some balls hard against Francis here in this first inning.
Well, it's interesting. Hessman is such a big guy, but he's got such a short, powerful stroke. He almost hit that hard enough that it didn't have a chance to turn foul. Nice try by the fan.
He almost got a free score. Mike Davis getting the night off tonight against the lefty. One and one to Hessman.
Because Coors Light, Rockies defense. Gonzalez has 4 assists in the outfield for the Rockies this year. More 145 games played with the Mets in the 1999 and 2000 season. And Iannetta behind the plate so far this year. 28 base stealers. He's only thrown out 4.
Games that Mora played with the Mets in those 2 seasons. I'd love to see the position distribution, because what Met fans remember Mora best for was his stellar play in the outfield during the postseason in 1999. Had 2 key outfield assists, one against the Diamondbacks and one against the Braves. So Jay Bell at home plate in the big spot against the Diamondbacks to keep a game tied, and then threw out Keith Lockhart at the plate in that wild 15-inning Game 5 against the Braves.
Yeah, he was 6 for 14 in that league championship series with a home run.
And then the next year, what really cost Melvin his Mets career was the fact that he just wasn't really an everyday shortstop. And when Ray Ordonez got hurt, that's what the Mets needed. So they traded him and got Mike Bordick from the Orioles. 3-2, and it's taken inside ball 4, and Hessman's on with a 2-out walk. So Francis, who walks very few, issues his first of the night. Generally, Francis has been much tougher early in games than he has been later. But the Mets have jumped on him for a couple here in the first inning, and now Jeff Francoeur. Jeff did not start either of the last 2 games, despite his home run heroics in Philadelphia on Saturday night. Getting the start tonight against the lefty, and pulls the curveball foul.
Been a trying kind of last 4 weeks, hasn't it been, for Jeff Francoeur, from being an everyday player to not being an everyday player. Told he's going to play in platoon, not always platooning.
Hessman running, and this one's lifted foul down the right field side. Hessman, not a guy you associate with stolen base attempts, but he was on the move.
I think a lot of that has to do with the slow delivery to the plate by Francis, and also Iannetta, which I mentioned before, has had a hard time throwing out base stealers.
To Francoeur, and it's grounded to the left side. Nice running play by Tulowitzki, who's got that great arm, and that ends the inning. But the Mets jump in front. Angel Pagan, after the bunt hit by Reyes, showed bunt on the first pitch, no bunt there. 10th home run for Pagan, 2-0 New York. Stand Up to Cancer and MLB.com have partnered to create a unique opportunity for you to personally dedicate a virtual piece of Citi Field to someone touched by this disease. Go to MLB.com/standupstadiums and join together to strike out cancer. John Deese now with a 2-0 lead. Troy Tulowitzki leads off the second. Tulowitzki took an 0 for last night, hitting a .317 on the year. He's been back about 2 weeks, coming off the disabled list following a fractured wrist that cost him more than a month. And as he did in the first inning, he falls behind his first hitter 2-0.
Yeah, he's not standing tall. He's getting a little underneath that cutter so far. And when he does that, the ball will be up in the strike zone.
And he catches the corner. 2-1. Tulowitzki, then Melvin Moore and Ryan Spilborghs for the Rockies in the second. Rode in on him and he fists it away. 2-2. The Rockies have had an awful time trying to win games against the Mets in New York. First at Shea Stadium and then here. Over the last half dozen years, the Mets have won 22 of their last 25 in New York against the Rockies. Of course, the Rockies began their existence at Shea Stadium. Swing and a miss, and Neese gets him with the changeup. Tulowitzki down for the first strikeout for Neese.
Interesting about Tulowitzki, like most modern-day hitters, tries to have a timing mechanism. Look at that front foot. Puts it back and then steps to the baseball. And a little too late there on that cutter from Jonathan.
So 1 out now, Melvin Moore. The Rockies' first ever game was in April of 1993 at Shea Stadium. David Need, who had been the Rockies' first pitch in the expansion draft, pitched for Colorado against Doc Goodman and got for a complete game shutout. And that was the first time the Mets ever shut out the Rockies in New York. Slow ground ball, tough play for Reyes coming in. 2 hands and fires and gets Moore by a healthy margin for the second out. Melvin doesn't get down the line like he used to. He was never particularly speedy, but you know, he was at least an average base runner, no more.
Well, in that one, he got jammed by Jonathan Neese. And anytime a hitter gets jammed, it takes him that little extra half second to get out of the box.
Especially a right-hander.
Yeah.
Here's Ryan Spilborghs. Spilborghs has started a little fewer than half the games. Look at that, shut out 5 of the last 7 and 10 of the last 25 that the Rockies have played against the Mets in New York. So this team that fares so well offensively in Colorado, their bats don't travel well to this city anyway. You know, sometimes there are some distractions in this city. The bats might stay out late.
Sometimes staying out late gets the bats going. You never know, Gary.
2-1 to Spilborghs.
You know, it's funny. That's not exactly
I don't think that's
strength and conditioning there, I don't think, for Miguel Olivo.
It's more like nervous energy.
Or maybe he's a piano player.
So he's going to do Cat's Cradle.
You know what's interesting is that Keith always talks about it, that when he came here with St. Louis, he would leave his room for the 3 or 4 days he was here.
Why?
Well, those things changed once he became a Met, yes. But
he heard his way around town.
I think he was fearful.
In the left field, and the first Rockies hit of the night belongs to Ryan Spilborghs after Neese had retired the first 5. And so a 2-out base runner for Colorado. And now Chris Iannetta, who has had himself a very difficult year for the Rockies. Hitting just .208, making his 30th start as the backup to Miguel Olivo.
Iannetta, one of the few major leaguers from the state of Rhode Island, and I think the Rockies have been expecting him for 3 or 4 seasons to finally find his way, but it has not happened yet.
Well, he's had one shining moment this year, and that came against the Mets back in April. Remember, he hit that walk-off home run off Henry Mejia in the 10th inning, as the Rockies took 2 out of 3 in that series from the Mets. Iannetta out of the University of North Carolina, which once produced a catcher named B.J. Surhoff. And a fastball misses inside, 3-0.
Good friend of mine, Walt Weiss, came from the University of North Carolina. Walter played for the Rockies.
But Barmas on deck, he's behind 3-0, and swinging as Iannetta hits it down the right field line and foul. So Iannetta taking a shot at 3-0 with the 8-hitter on deck. Probably not a bad idea.
Although Barmas is not your traditional 8th place hitter, he's got some skills. I think when you get shut out, and you mentioned how they've been shut out against the Mets, you try something different.
Swinging on 3-1, he lifts one out to center field. Plenty of room out there for Beltran to patrol. And the side retired. First fly ball against Nice. 1 hit and 1 left. 2-0 New York. Third inning of tonight's game. Just go to SNY.TV, click on the link, and join the conversation. It's Chat Live with Bob Ojeda, presented by Verizon, only on SNY.TV, your online home of all things New York sports. Henry Blanco getting the start behind the plate tonight. Henry making his 30th start of the year. And he hits one in the air to left, and Carlos Gonzalez drifts over. 1 out. Plans change quickly around this team, don't they?
They do.
I mean, it was only, what, a week and a half ago that Jerry decided that with Barajas out, that Blanco was going to catch Santana and Pelfrey, and Foley was going to catch the other 3 pitchers.
That's right.
And then the plan changed.
It changes daily, I'll tell you.
There's Luis Castillo starting for the first time since Friday night in Philadelphia. Ruben Tejada started 3 straight games.
You know, when you are not scoring runs, you kind of just mix and match and try to find something that's working.
But it's hard to find fault with what Foley has done offensively.
Yeah.
I know they've tried to limit his exposure a little bit to left-handed pitching, but still, he's been one of the better bats in the lineup over this last stretch.
Well, he takes a great at-bat. He sees a lot of pitches. He fouls off a lot of tough pitches, and I think he's more than held his own behind the plate.
He certainly had the biggest hit of last night's game, doubling against Ubaldo Jimenez. Did you see the quote from Jimenez after the game? He said, "I thought he was up there to bunt. I threw it down the middle." I mean, that was honest.
That's
right?
great. You know, it's funny. That's what you're taught as you move along in the ranks of pitching. If you know a guy's going to be bunting, throw it down the middle.
Castillo shatters his bat. Mora ignores it and throws him out. And then goes over and does some housekeeping. Play the ball, then play the bat.
More fake to the bat, to the ball boy that he's going to throw the bat back and the shards back to him.
Well, coming up during the next half inning, Kevin Burkhardt will talk with Mike Pelfrey, last night's winning pitcher. Do you know that over the last 2 years, the Mets have won 6 1-0 games, and that Santana and Pelfrey have gotten the win in all 6?
That's right.
3 for Pelfrey, 3 for Santana. Nice has done them one better. He threw a one-hit shutout this year.
Yeah, Pelf was great last night. It was great to see him pitching well again. You go through those stretches that he went through, and you start to wonder how you're going to get it back.
Well, what I thought was fascinating about last night's game is that what had become his signature pitch early this season when he was having his initial success, that splitter, was almost non-existent.
I think he might have thrown a half a dozen at the most. And he routinely in the beginning of the year was throwing 25 to 30 of them a game. He went back to his good hard slider, his great sinker, an occasional, little bigger slider. Didn't throw any curveballs last night, and very few split fingers.
And the curveball in for Nice for a 3rd strike. Francis has his 2nd strikeout, and the Mets are down 1-2-3. After 2, Pelfrey coming up. 2-0 Mets. Baseball, Xerox ready for real business. Let's go down to Kevin Burkhardt, who's standing by with Mike Pelfrey.
Last night's winning pitcher, Mike, there was a lot of talk from Jerry, just about your arm speed and if it may be a little bit slower on certain pitches. Did you find that, and what did you try to do to resolve that?
I definitely, feel in the previous starts, especially, on the slider and, the curveball. I think the curveball was the biggest one, and it was more on, I felt like what I would call, get me over pitches, pitches I'm just trying to throw for strikes, and, we talked about that in the bullpen and, keeping the same arm speed and on everything. And, last night I just felt like, I was a lot slower in my motion until it came, it came time for my arm to get going. And, I felt like I, threw everything with the same speed as my fastball.
Is that something have you ever had a problem with that before? Have you ever done that, earlier in your career, that type of thing?
Well, I'm sure I've always, I've always done it, but just, I think there was even some hitters that made some comments that, said, hey, it was very noticeable, so, if they notice it, then, it's time to address it.
You threw a lot of fastballs last night. You threw inside a lot last night. Was that a plan, to go out and really establish, especially the inside part of the plate?
I think the biggest thing was establishing the fastball, and we went to I threw a lot of four-seam fastballs last night, which I got away from my sinker, which I was doing more early in the year, throwing more four-seamers, and over the last couple of starts, I thought I got into the groove of throwing a lot more sinkers, and and got away from what made me so successful early in the year. So I got back to throwing the four-seamers, and it worked out pretty well.
Do you almost have to remind yourself that you can throw 96 miles an hour? I mean, I know you mix the speeds and you mix the pitches, but do you almost have to remind yourself that you have that weapon? Because, like you said, kind of going back to the four-seamer a little bit.
Oh well, I know that I have it. I got to use it though.
Yeah.
So. I don't think it doesn't do me any good if I don't locate it, and if I'm missing over the middle of the plate, which I got to hit the corners, and if I'm going to miss in on a guy, I got to miss in off the plate, instead of over the middle. So, I think I definitely know that I have it in me.
Mike, you told me earlier today that you thought your splitter was actually a little bit flat yesterday. Where are you with that pitch and trying to, now that maybe hitters have made an adjustment to it, where are you with that pitch and getting to the point where now it's kind of your turn for the adjustment?
Yeah, well, I thought maybe early in the year, maybe it wasn't on the scouting report, and so guys are chasing it in the dirt and everything, and, now the guys are, starting to lay off it. So, I'm going to have to start throwing it for, more strikes, so maybe I'll start getting, more swings with it. So that's something that I'll, work on in the pen, and, hopefully I'll get back to it to, being a big weapon for me.
Mike, how about today now after a game like that? Obviously great improvement, and certainly I'm sure you're gratified to get the win and have that result. What do you do today? I mean, are you watching tape of yesterday? How do you go forward now from that start?
Well, I haven't gotten to watching tape yet, but I will do that. And today I showed up to the park early and got my 30-minute flush run in, and did a leg workout, lower body workout, and did some abs. So that's a normal day after routine.
Mike, that good cheer meant the John East is out of the inning. So thanks so much for the time, and good luck your next start. Okay, Mike?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mike Pelfrey got the W.
Francis Reyes ignited the Mets with a bunt single in the first inning. Came around to score on Pagan's home run. Jose has now scored 65 runs this year. The league leader in runs scored is Joey Votto of the Reds. He has 80. You account for the time that Reyes has missed this year, both the start of the season and then when he was struggling with the oblique. He's not all that far behind. However, as the curveball is lifted out to left field, and Carlos Gonzalez drifting under it, puts it away. When you compare the 65 runs scored now for Reyes to his career high, he scored 122 runs in 2006.
Yeah. And that's with a .318 on base percentage. So almost every time he gets on, he's scoring.
Here's Pagan. who became the 5th Met this year to reach double digits in home runs, and saying something after last year when the Mets had Daniel Murphy lead the team with 12. Now you've got Wright with 17, Davis 15, Barajas 12, Francoeur 11, and now Pagan with 10. Again, with Mora playing back, Pagan shows bunt. Did that his first at bat as well. Second pitch he hit out of the ballpark. Mora still not committing in. And Pagan takes the changeup.
Well, it's the changeup right in the middle of the plate by Francis. In this humid weather, the Citi Field, if you pull the ball, get it up in the air, it's got a chance to go out. That's a ball that in April, you'd see it hit, and it might get out, but it could be a ball that would stay in the ballpark.
David Wright on deck. Pagan hits one out to center field, and Fowler's right there. And that's the second out. Let's bring you a Toyota text poll for tonight. How about this? Who should be the Mets starting center fielder for the rest of the season? Beltran, Pagan.
What are you doing, trying to be a troublemaker?
Text 57508. I don't make up the questions. Go visit SNY.TV. Try to get a gauge on what the fans are thinking. Here's David Wright, who struck out his first time up. 122 strikeouts now for David. He is now 2 for his last 30. It has been such an odd year for Wright in that respect. He has had such incredibly hot streaks and such dismal cold spells, and they seem to come one right after another.
And I think that's the big question, is just, you know, with the kind of ability that David has, it's so almost hard to believe that he can go on these kind of stretches at times.
But he'll have a 3 or 4 day period when he'll drive in 11 runs and you can't get him out. And then a week to 10 days where he's in this kind of funk. This, of course, is the kind of pitcher he normally eats up. Soft tossing left-hander like Francis. And in fact, he has in the past. You mentioned the numbers earlier. He's now 6 for 10 with 3 home runs against Francis. But Francis strikes him out for the second time. Third strikeout for Jeff Francis, who's set down 7 in a row. 3 in the books, 2-0 New York. Rockies concludes tomorrow at 12:10 p.m. Get the best seats direct from the Mets at Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX. Todd Helton leads off in the 4th inning. Helton grounded to short his first time up against John Neese, who's allowed just 1 base runner so far. A 2-out single by Ryan Spilborghs in the 2nd inning. Helton now 0 for 5 in this series. Todd Helton has been one of the fine players in this game for the last decade or so. And really struggling this year. Just looks like a shadow of his former self.
He looks like he's lost a little bit of his bat speed. He's been trying to kind of guess inside and starting it early, especially last night against Pelfrey. He used to be just a beautiful hands hitter. Waited the ball to get very deep in the strike zone and had a very quick bat.
If you remember when Helton was tearing it up every year, the Rockies signed him to a 9-year contract. Next year is the last year of that deal.
Sometimes even ownership gets caught up in the fever that happens. But 9 years is too much for any pro athlete in any sport.
Unless you're a hockey player.
Yeah,
then they can sign you for life.
That's right.
Or maybe not.
They tried.
Well, didn't Rick DiPietro get like 15 years?
Yeah, 15 to 20 years, right? Goalie.
You see lifetime .325 average, 4th among active players. And to me, what's always been more impressive about Helton is the on-base percentage. Coming into this year, .427 for his career.
On-base percentage, always been a fine defensive player at first base. The former quarterback from the University of Tennessee,
where he once started ahead of Peyton Manning. That didn't last. 2-2. Just missed away, 3-2. Neese has not walked a batter tonight after walking 5 in his last start against the Phillies. Kept his pitch count down in this game. And Helton swings through the fastball. Strikeout number 3 for John Neese.
You know, Jonathan Neese, if you're a left-handed hitter, you get that ball that keeps working away from you, away from you, away from you, all the bats, and then he'll throw a more true fastball, and it gets him by it.
So now Carlos Gonzalez, who grounded out his first time up. We mentioned Gonzalez leading the National League in batting. The Rockies came into existence in 1993. They have already had 5 batting champions. The Mets are in their 49th year. The Mets have never had a batting champion.
Olerud didn't win?
Olerud did .354 in 1998, but Tony Gwynn was still around.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Another good fastball by Neese, and it's 0-2. Larry Walker won it 3 times, 98, 99, and 01, hitting .363, .379, and .350. Helton won it in 2000, .372. And Matt Holliday won in 2007, hitting .340. I don't think anybody in the National League's going to hit .340 this year. Doesn't look that way anyway.
Finest Canadian everyday player, Larry Walker.
Oh, yeah.
By far. And I guess Fergie
Jenkins would be your greatest Canadian pitcher. Sure. Walker a Hall of Famer?
You know, that splits again, right?
Well, the home and road. But the one thing about Walker, as far as I know, there's no PED taint on his career.
That, and also he was one of the best players of his time.
Here's the 1-2. Swing and a miss. He got him. Back-to-back strikeouts for John Neese. That gives him 4 for the night.
Just doesn't seem like these Colorado hitters are picking up the fastball from Jonathan. I mean, that's late by Gonzalez.
Looks like they're looking for the cutter, isn't it?
He's looking for the cutter, and he's beating them with it. Look at those eyes on the target, wrapping that glove hand around, falling through with the arm. That beautiful form, Jonathan Neese.
Here's Tulowitzki, who struck out his first time up, drops down a beauty of a bunt, and Wright can put it in his pocket. You can't lay down a better bunt hit than Tulowitzki. Second hit of the game for Colorado.
You know, a lot of players will tell you, Gary, a curveball is the easiest pitch to bunt because since you have to wait on it, your bat naturally gets out in front. It provides that great angle, and David playing all the way back has no chance. right off the end of the bat. Killed it. Got the great angle on it. Got a nice jump out of the box.
So that gets the tying run to bat for the Rockies with Melvin Mora, who grounded to short his first time up. And he fouls one away. We were talking about Mora and his ability to play everywhere, which he did when he was a Met. While he was with the Mets, he played 6 different positions. All 3 outfield spots, second, third, and short. Played more games at short than anywhere else. That was when he was filling in for Ordonez in 2000. But overall, more games in the outfield than he played in the infield. He was a terrific outfielder. I mean, really could have been a Gold Glover if he had played there for his entire career. But of course, when he went to the Orioles, they moved him to third base, where he became a fixture. And interestingly, this year, Melvin played a game in the outfield for the first time in ages.
Wow. You know,
they felt a little like a fish out of water.
In the old days, he might have been a candidate. Remember in the last days of the season, you'd always get one guy who would play all 9 positions in a game. He would be the kind of guy who could do it.
Cesar Tovar.
There you go.
Bert Campaneris. I don't know the last guy to do that. Breaking ball fouled off. There was talk at one time with the Mets that Joe McEwing might try and do that, because Joe could play anywhere. Ryan Spilborg's on deck. Ties him up inside. And did he stop it? Yep, he did. DJ Rayburn, the first base umpire, with the call, 2-2. And Moore takes a fastball on the outside corner. Strike 3 call. 3 strikeouts in the inning for Nice. He's got 5 for the night. And a 2-0 lead in the middle of the 4th. Carlos Beltran leads off the home 4th inning and takes a strike. Beltran grounded out to third base his first time up. And he bounces another one to short. And Tulowitzki with the running toss. 1 out. 8 in a row retired by Jeff Francis. Let's check in with Kevin.
Guys had an interesting conversation today with Rockies ace Ubaldo Jimenez. Pitched that great game last night. And I asked him where the cupping of the baseball came from. You know, we showed it close up last night. He goes behind his back and kind of cups it, bending his wrist before he comes through with the motion. And he actually said, you know what, after the Rocky signed me. I was an A-ball, and my arm was kind of hurting. So I was just kind of playing around, and for some reason I did that, and it didn't hurt. And so because I didn't feel any pain, I started doing it. I started using it, and it started to work, and that's how it was born. But the interesting part is that he said, you know, to be honest, I'd actually like my mechanics to be a little different. I wish they were a little bit more compact, because to me, it almost feels like I have to work doubly hard to throw a strike. The problem is I've been doing it now for a while, and I think it would be really hard to kind of get out of that and go to a different type of motion. But, I mean, talk about a guy that's had tremendous success who actually says he wish his mechanics were totally different. I found that fascinating, guys.
Well, two questions. One, does it make sense to you that it would hurt less to do that? It looks so painful.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. In fact, anyone who comes to baseball, the external rotation you put on the front of your shoulder is about double what you have from a guy who throws traditionally like a catcher from his ear.
Westman drives one out to left, right at Gonzalez for the second out.
But, you know, he's 26 years old. He's 6'4". He's 230 pounds. He's all muscle. You know, he can withstand that. The thing about, which I find interesting, though, is that he shouldn't really want to change that motion too much, because one of the reasons that he's so successful is the deception of that motion, and also because he cups that baseball, he gets the great movement.
So you would not recommend him making a change?
Well, I think, you know, we are in a day and age where, for whatever reason, a lot of people think that you can legislate how guys get injured or not injured. I know there's certain things that you can do foundation-wise to give a guy a better chance of not getting hurt. But you know what? This is professional sports. He's at the top of his game. Let him roll it out there until if something happens, or maybe it won't. You can look at every great pitcher, and I'm talking more about the guys in the 60s and 70s who had to endure 40 starts a year, endure 300 innings a year. And you'll see a lot of funky kind of motions. You say, boy, he doesn't look like he'd last a year. Well, next thing you know, 500 complete games.
Tulowitzki uses that howitzer to throw out Frank Core and end the inning. 10 in a row set down by Francis, but the Mets lead 2-0 after 4. John Neese had a bump in the road 2 starts back against Arizona, but he found himself in Philadelphia in his last start, and it's carried over to tonight. The Rockies have yet to scratch in this series. Shut out last night 1-0, and Neese has held them to just 2 singles over the first 4 innings tonight. Ryan Spilborghs has one of those 2 hits, and he takes the first pitch curveball outside for ball 1. Neese bidding for his 8th win of the year. He certainly deserves to be better than 7-5 the way he's pitched. Is that not a recurring theme on this staff?
Well, a little different approach by Jonathan Neese. If you remember that start he had in Philadelphia, he and Josh Tolley were using the curveball much more often than they are here. He has a little better cutter, though, than he had in Philadelphia.
Now, do you think that has to do with the fact that Blanco's catching him tonight rather than Tolley? Could that be the reason for a little different game?
I think Blanco and Barajas know only the cutter, Jonathan Neese. And Josh Tolley, of course, coming up through the system with Jonathan, would know him as having that devastating curveball. What people tend to forget, in the minor leagues, you're in those camps and you hit off each other all the time. I'm sure Josh Tolley had to take a lot of at-bats against Jonathan in spring training and said, I hope I don't have to see that curveball. If I ever catch him, I'm going to call it a lot.
Spilborghs lines one, and Castillo with a beautiful play. 1 out.
Well, nice placement by Louis. Played him up the middle, Spilborghs, and then gets off his feet and makes a fine catch up the middle. These are the kind of plays that are made behind a pitcher who gets the ball and throws it. Everyone's on their toes, ready to make a good play.
So one hard out, and here's Chris Iannetta, and he takes a strike. Iannetta flying to center his first time up. Look at that. 17 straight innings. He's retired the leadoff hitter. You do that, you got a great chance of winning.
Well, that was Tom Seaver's adage all the time. He said, people say first pitch strikes. He said first out of the inning is always key.
Well, statistically, it holds. I don't know what the current numbers are, but over the years, when teams get leadoff hitters on, they score about 50% of the time. When they don't, it goes down to about somewhere in the 16-17% range. I mean, it's overwhelming.
And one of the reasons for you people at home is that when you get into trouble because you've allowed the leadoff hitter on and give up a couple of hits, a walk, or here or there, you have to recover from nobody out with maybe the bases loaded or guys in second and third. You get that first guy out, sometimes you have the base loaded with 2 outs. All you got to do is get 1 out to get out of the inning.
Strikeout number 6 for John Neese as he gets Iannetta.
There's the curveball we were talking about, called by Henry Blanco. Well, I take that back. That is not the curveball. That's just a little bit bigger cutter there from Jonathan.
So Neese, who fanned 7 in his last start against the Phillies, has 6 already tonight. Now Clint Barmas, and he takes a first pitch strike. Barmas flying to left his first time up. Big hitter for Neese. He'd love to have the pitcher lead off the next inning. Line to left, and coming on is Pagan to make the basket catch. Side retired. 1-2-3 for Neese with a couple of line drives thrown in. Halfway through, 2-0 New York.
The Rockies 2-0 on the strength of Angel Pagan's 2-run home run. Time now for our favorite portion of the homestand. The Verizon Ask the Booth. Got a rabid Mets fan here. It's Paul from Staten Island. Paul, what do you got for the guys?
My question is, Josh Tolley, everyday catcher. Do you guys think he's ready?
He's getting a lot of looks, guys. What do you think? Can he be the guy for next season?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, coming out of this season, you think about it, Barajas and Blanco were brought here because of their veteran leadership. You know, is that going to be something that the Mets are going to continue with as they move along? I think Josh Tolley right now can be an everyday catcher as an offensive player. As Blanco goes foul. But I still think he needs some work on his defensive abilities. His throwing has been much improved. But I think that behind the plate, he's still moving a little too much. And if he can get himself to the point where he's not only not moving so much, able to receive the ball a little quieter fashion, and then also work on his game-calling abilities, yeah, absolutely. I think he could be a #1 catcher.
And he's made progress in that regard since last year. The throwing is noticeable. He doesn't have the world's greatest arm, but he's been very accurate with his throws and has had a quick release.
Yeah, you're right. Accurate and quick. And I think also, if he's shown this much improvement, you've got to be thinking that he can do it again and then improve again this winter.
Blanco shoots one toward the hole, and Henry's got a base hit. Blanco seems to get a hit every time it starts, doesn't he? He snaps a streak of 10 in a row retired by Francis.
He just hit it right on the button, right by Barmes before he could move.
But I guess the question for Tolley is, if he's not going to be the #1 catcher next year, does that mean he has to go back to AAA and play every day, or would you keep him as the #2 catcher?
Well, that's an interesting question. Maybe it depends on if R.A. Dickey has a future here with the Mets next season, because he has caught R.A. better than anyone else. I think that Tolley does not have to go to AAA anymore. I think he has to work this winter, whether it's winter ball, which he did last season, or the Arizona Fall League. And he could come back, and if he's not quite ready, if he's at 70% of his potential, 80%, whatever, then maybe you have to decide if it's Blanco or Barajas, but you want a right-handed hitter also, who is a catcher, who also doesn't mind being a mentor also.
If Tolley goes to winter ball, can he go someplace a little more stable? I mean, he was in Venezuela last year, and it was not an easy situation for him. Things are a little volatile down there.
That's right.
Castillo grounded out to third base his first trip, and he takes a big strike zone strike, 1-1.
And so I guess our answer is a resounding yes, and especially based on the fact of getting to know Josh, and he's such a hard worker. He's a guy that wants to be a really good player, and that's sometimes half the battle.
Slowly hit. Tulowitzki gets the play at second. Barmes with the sidearm toss into the runner, and Castillo's safe at first. Helton goes over and puts a tag on Castillo, who did not make a turn.
Well, that was an interesting choice by Barmes. I don't know what he was thinking about. Watch his back leg. He gets the nice toss from Tulowitzki. He keeps the leg right on the bag. You want to come across that bag and be able to push off your back leg and make that proper throw to first. He just slung it over there.
And that throw, didn't it hit Castillo? Otherwise, that ball might have
hit Castillo, absolutely.
I don't know if it would have gone into the dugout or hit off the fence in front of the dugout, but the ball was by Helton. So Castillo at first with Neese at the plate looking to bunt him over. John has just 2 sacrifices this year to go with his 6 hits.
The only way that maybe Barmes was thinking is that with the soft toss, maybe he was thinking he didn't want to do the daylight play. He wanted to make sure they got the out on second base. Remember, Barmes came up as a shortstop, so just like Ruben Tejada, second base is his second position.
One and out to Neese.
One of the things about Jonathan, he hasn't surprised me with his pitching, but he surprised me at the bat. He's not an easy out. He's got a couple doubles this year, and interestingly enough, 5 walks, so he has a nice eye. Gets
the bunt down. Francis left to go to first with it. And a high throw, but Barmas pulls it down. So 1-4 on the sacrifice, moving Castillo to second. And now there are 2 out. So Anise has his 3rd sacrifice bunt. Jose Reyes will try and make something of it. Reyes drove in his 41st run of the year last night to get the Mets their only run. The Mets' last 2 victories have both come by 1-0 scores. The last time the Mets had 2 consecutive wins, both 1-0, even with games in between, 1976.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while. Tonight, they changed the program. They've already got 2 runs.
That's right.
In fact, they got the 2 runs, 2 batters into the 1st inning. Reyes a bunt single and Pagan a home run. And that's been it.
You know, Castillo was hit by that ball from Barmas. Let's see if it had any effect, that run to second base.
Not limping any more than usual.
You know, it's hard to tell with Louis. He's got that kind of hop-along gait.
He's got one leg significantly longer than the other, so particularly when he's stopping, it's a program.
For you older viewers, he's our Mets version of Walter Brennan when he gets going.
Yep. One and one to Reyes, who flied to left his last time up. 1 for 2 on the night. And that misses outside. 2-1.
I'd be pretty impressed with Francis after giving up that 2-run home run. Coming off the injury, did not pitch at all last season, kind of rounding himself into form. This is a guy that was their #1 guy. 17 wins a couple seasons ago. A couple wins in the playoffs in 2007.
Reyes pops one up to shallow right. Spielborg's coming in to call, and that retires the side. So Francis works around to lead off hits. 5 in the books now at Citi Field. 2-0 Mets. Pitcher Jeff Francis leads off the 6th inning for Colorado and takes a strike. Francis went down looking his first time up, one of 6 strikeouts for John Neese tonight. And the curveball dribbled foul, and it's 0-2. Let's take a look at our TGI Friday 6th inning recap. Rockies have not scored in this series. In fact, going back to the series in Colorado earlier this year, the Mets have now held the Rockies scoreless 23 consecutive innings. They shut out the Rockies the final game of that series. Neese has been on top of this game again after a fine effort in Philadelphia last time out. He strikes out Francis for his 7th strikeout off the night. Just one shy of a career high for Neese with the 7 punch-outs. He also had 7 against the Phillies.
Well, that's that big curveball no chance for Francis. Started in the middle of the plate, broke it off the outside corner.
If anything, he's even better tonight than he was against the Phillies, and that hasn't walked anybody. He walked 5 in that game last Friday night. Here's Fowler, who's 0 for 2. Grounded to second, and then a soft line drive to second. And Fowler breaks his bat as he grounds one out to Reyes. 2 out. And he's just rolling right along. Let's check in with Chris Carlin, see what's going on elsewhere in New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. Bailing out on the John Deese curveball. Second day in a row that the Braves have scored in the final inning to win. They've been making a habit of that all year. Yesterday it was Brooks Conrad who was in the lineup after Chipper Jones left with a knee injury. A former Houston farmhand back in Houston hits the 2-run homer in the 9th. That puts them on top. The kind of year it's been for the Braves.
And the kind of year it's been for Conrad, who has been the ultra sub, hasn't he? He has a grand slam home run that tied a game up. He has a suicide squeeze that won a game.
He's had 2 pinch hit grand slams this year. Helton drives one toward the gap in right center field, beyond the reach of Frank Core. Cuts it off at the warning track, and Helton pulls into second base with a 2-out double. First extra base hit of the night for the Rockies, and Helton's 11th double of the year.
Well, a little cutter that stays right over the middle of the plate. Nice swing by Helton. Many times that you see here at Citi Field, the ball dropped 5 feet, 10 feet from the warning track, and no one can get to it.
Well, the Rockies now have 3 hits in the game, and all 3 have come with 2 out and nobody on. Carlos Gonzalez, who's tied for 3rd in the National League with 77 RBIs, comes up.
He wanted that pitch, that cutter outside on the corner or off the plate, missed in.
Slow ground ball, foul. Gonzalez tonight has grounded to second and struck out. 1 for 6 in this series. Came into this series the hottest hitter in the National League. He's hitting .500 over his previous 11 games. That's how hot he's been, with 8 home runs. Lease beats him again with a high fastball, and it's 0-2.
Look at the outfield for the Mets. Pretty deep, but even unusually deep is Angel Pagan to left field. Why? Well, 2 balls off the bat of Gonzalez, almost over the head of Chris Carter. He made the catch on one, and then a double off the wall. So lots of power to left field.
And I think also Angel doesn't feel quite as secure in left field as he might if he were playing center field.
When he plays center field and even right field, he is a kind of a offensive defensive player, really aggressive, goes after the baseball. Left field, he seems a little defensive to me.
The ball he caught against Marmiston the last inning coming in seemed a little tentative before making a basket catch. Here's the 0-2, and the curveball hit in the air to right, and Frank Core right there waiting for it. So John Deese has thrown up 6 scoreless innings tonight. He's on a pretty good roll. The Mets are up 2-0. For the rest of the season, a landslide to say the least. Angel Pagan, who has played wonderfully in center field this year. Carlos Beltran, trying to come back from injury, has not played nearly as well, and your fan votes reflect that.
Wow.
Angel leads off in the 6th inning. He's accounted for all the runs tonight. A 2-run homer back in the first, his 10th of the year. And he swings and misses at a Jeff Francis fastball. Angel fly to center in his 2nd at bat. He now has 5 career at bats against Francis with 2 home runs. It'll be Pagan, then Wright and Beltran for the Mets here in the bottom of the 6th. Each team has only 3 hits. And the curveball bends in for a strike, 0-2. Francis has kept his pitch count low. He's only at 72 pitches for the night. Keep in mind, he's only thrown 100 pitches twice this year. They've been making sure to keep his pitch counts short coming back from shoulder surgery.
They want him to make his starts but be ready for the entire year next year.
Well, the interesting part about that is that next year the Rockies have a $7 million option on Francis. He had a 3-year contract plus an option, and next year is the option year. And they've got a tough call to make, as Pagan bloops one behind first base, and Helton back to get it, 1 away. I mean, you got a guy like Francis who's been a frontline pitcher for you. You mentioned 17 wins back in 07, good postseason pitcher, but struggled in 08. Clearly his shoulder was hurt, and then finally had the surgery. Missed all of last year. The first part of this year, he's been up and down this season. Do you kick in that option? Do you try and sign him for less? Do you let him go?
I think you kick in the option. I think the reason being, if Jimenez was not on the team, I would say maybe not. Because as a #1 starter, that's maybe not where he's going to be anymore. But I think he's a great complementary pitcher to Jimenez. And in a strange way, I don't want to say it. I'm going to say it though. $7 million is not, I mean, it's not crazy money.
It's an interesting call because the Rockies are not a huge market team. They're not a small market team either. They're somewhere in the middle. And I don't know what the market's going to be like this coming off season. What's going to be the price for a pitcher of Francis's caliber?
Well, I will say though, I don't know what the price is going to be, but there would be interest. Absolutely.
Francis has struck out right each of his 2 at-bats tonight. And David takes a hack at a changeup, and it's 2-2. And David just looks lost at the plate right now.
It's almost like he decided he was going to swing on that 2-1 pitch no matter what. And he got the changeup instead of the fastball.
2-2. Up and in. And a full count to David with Beltran on deck. David 0 for his last 11, 2 for his last 31. And he foul tips one, again held by Iannetta. 3 at bats, 3 strikeouts for Wright tonight against a guy he has owned in the past.
Well, in the past, Francis had a great ability to elevate his fastball. He doesn't throw as hard as he used to. Watch David's head. Let's see if he gets on the baseball. A lot of times when you see those good hitters, they'll have those eyes right on the barrel of the bat when they make contact. David did not do that, and the frustration comes out.
So now Beltran has been up twice. Both times has grounded out to the left side. And he pounds one into the ground foul, and it's 0-2. Well, the Mets won last night 1-0. They won Friday night 1-0. They're leading tonight 2-0. But at some point, the Mets have got to have Wright and Beltran kick some offense into gear. You can't win 1-0 and 2-0 every day. And we saw Beltran express a little frustration in the dugout in Philly, and now it's David's turn. Foul tip held by Iannetta. Back-to-back strikeouts for Francis. And the Mets go down 1-2-3 in the 6th. John Meese back to the mound for the 7th, working on a 2-0 shutout. very dramatic, don't you think?
Love it. You know, Danny Barr's outstanding work.
Well, John Neese has been outstanding in his own right. Tulowitzki lines one to the left, and he's got his second hit off the night. So Tulowitzki, who had a bunt single his previous time up, becomes the first leadoff hitter to reach base against Neese tonight, or for that matter, what, for the last 18 innings?
Well, he's the first guy really in this game that's been looking middle of the plate in off Jonathan Neese, and it's paid off for him.
So now Melvin Mora, who was grounded out and struck out tonight. Neese is fan 7. And there's no messing around with John. You know there hasn't been a stolen base against Neese all year. Opposing base stealers are 0 for 4, and he doesn't do a whole lot. He just,
gets it and throws it.
Exactly. Gets it to home plate in a hurry. Ground ball, base hit. And so back-to-back hits for the Rockies to start the 7th inning, and they've got the tying runs on base. And Worthen quickly to the phone. Neese at 91 pitches tonight. He threw 111 in his last start and was pulled after 7 innings.
It's a strange game, right? If you center that ball and it's 10 feet to the right, it's right to Reyes and it's a double play. 10 feet to the left, you get a phone call. Or the bullpen gets a phone call.
Manny Acosta will begin to work. Last night began the era of Isunori Takahashi as the 8th inning man. That pushes Acosta and his pals into the 7th inning. If Takahashi succeeds in that role, it brings a whole new dimension to the men's bullpen. Of course, what it also presents is a need for a starting pitcher Saturday night.
Yes.
Which could be Pat Mish,
who only went 5 innings, 55 pitches when he was taken out of his start. 5 shutout innings that was.
Could be Raul Valdez.
Coming out of bullpen, maybe throwing 4 or 5 innings.
And maybe Oliver Perez.
Why not?
Here's Spilborghs with 2 men on. Swing and a miss. 0-1. Spilborghs had a base hit to left field in the 2nd, and then lined one up the middle. Looked like he had another hit. Castillo made a nice lunging backhand catch to rob him in the 5th. And Neese misses down. 1-1. Matt Belisle on your left and Manny Corpus on your right. Both up in the Rockies bullpen as the Rockies work down toward the bottom of the batting order with the 6-hitter at the plate. Slow ground ball. Wright has to charge. His only play will be to first. And he gets Spilborghs for the first out as the runners advance. So now the tying runs are in scoring position, and the number 7 hitter Iannetta comes up. Fly to center and struck out 0 for 2. So Neese in his first jam of the night. Rockies had just 3 base runners before this inning, and all had come after 2 out and nobody on. Iannetta jumping on the first one and pulling it foul. Iannetta with 7 home runs this year, including that walk-off shot against Henry Mejia back in April. Infield back, they'll concede a run on a ground ball, and the curveball dribbled foul, and now Neese, who's fan 7 tonight, would love to get number 8 here.
We see the defense. Outfield's deep and straight up. The infield defense, especially Castillo, shaded up the middle.
Varmus, the number 8 hitter, on deck. 0-2. A little bit high. He was going for the strikeout. 1-2 to Iannetta.
Nice pitch by Neese. This young left-hander called by Blanco. A fastball up in the strike zone. He executes it. Even the hitter did not swing at it. It's still a good pitch because it sets up a cutter in or curveball in the dirt.
And Iannetta pounds that one foul.
Pitch you want to stay away from in this situation, especially 1-2, is that fastball that you try to paint away. That's the pitch that the hitter will flare to right field.
Iannetta just fouled off that curveball. Nice gets Iannetta here, and I know it's looking maybe a little too far ahead. But a very interesting call because Barmas, the 8 hitter, is on deck. Then you got the pitcher spot. There are some really good hitters in the Rockies dugout, but they're all left-handed. The only right-handed bat on the bench is Miguel Olivo, the backup catcher. The number 1 catcher is sitting tonight. And this is away, and it's 2-2 to Iannetta. First task for Nice is to get this hitter out. Up to 100 pitches on the night now. Seth Smith, who has been ailing with a bruised shin, has him back. Iannetta hooks one down the left field line, and that's just foul.
Nice at bat by Iannetta so far. Almost got this down the line. Not a lot of room there, and just 3-4 feet foul.
And he's got ahead of him 0-2. Tulowitzki at third, Moore the tying run at second. This will be the 8th pitch of the at bat to Iannetta. And he misses inside and low with the fastball. It's 3-2. The walk to Iannetta changes the equation completely with Barmas on deck.
Jonathan have enough gusto at 3-2 to throw that 3-2 hook.
In the air to center field, that'll get a run in. Beltran back. Great circle route, and he gets there. Tulowitzki tags at third, comes in. Mora hustles over to third base. Sacrifice fly for Iannetta cuts the Mets lead to 2-1. Good at bat for Iannetta. He drives in his 18th run.
Outstanding hitting. This cutter, not a lot on. It stayed in the middle of the plate. Beltran with the catch, but both runners were able to advance. See, Tulowitzki's going to score. Mora went halfway, then went back because it was so deep, and this is a big ballpark. You see him hustling around third just in case.
So now the tying run at third with 2 out, and Barmas the batter. And it's way outside, ball 1. Seth Smith has come out on deck to be a pinch hitter if Barmas can keep the inning going. That's low and inside, 2-0. And Blanco's going to run it back out to Nice.
Well, this ball's supposed to be outside. He still cuts it, and he catches it on the backhand here, Henry Blanco. This is the first time that I've seen Jonathan Nice, and I think because it's late in the game, and he knows this is a chance for him to get a win as you see Acosta and Feliciano up. First time I've seen him trying to kind of power his way through this last hitter.
That was dangerous, that last pitch, with the tying run at third base.
Easier said than done, but when you're a young pitcher, key to get out of these jams, execute your pitches.
Popped it up. Kept that ball away from Barmas, and it pays off for him. Castillo back to grab it, and the inning is over. So Nice bends but doesn't break, gives up 1. That's lead 2-1. News and insider info on Daily News Live, presented by Citi, part of the New York Sports Local, tomorrow at 5 on SNY. There's your free score box score. One big swing by Angel Pagan in the first inning produced the only 2 Met runs tonight after Jose Reyes' bunt single. Jeff Francis was terrific after that. He is now out of the game. As we go to the bottom of the 7th, John Neese appears to be done as well after 107 pitches. Survived a crisis in the 7th. Leaves with a 2-1 lead. Seth Smith comes in to play right field. He'll bat 9th for the Rockies, and on to pitch and hit 6th is Matt Belisle.
Well, he's been outstanding for the Rockies this year. 68 in the 3rd innings pitch is the most in the majors for a reliever. Last 21 games, 1.08 ERA.
Mike Hessman is 0 for 1. He walked and fly to left. Well, John Neese acquitting himself wonderfully again tonight. 7 innings, 1 run, 5 hits. Isanori Takahashi, who pitched a 1-2-3 8th last night, will get the 8th again tonight.
And with all this talk about Takahashi pitching the 8th inning, the most interesting thing for me is going to be able to see how he rebounds pitching back-to-back-to-back games.
Hessman fouls one away.
Of course, there was an off day, but he's thrown in the last 3 games. He's going to throw in the last 3 games, and 2 innings in that game on Sunday.
Hessman downswing on the fastball by Belisle, and that's the first out. Here's your Mets upcoming schedule. Remember, all Mets games on SNY are available in HD, presented by IOTV. If you're not near a TV, listen to every Mets game on Sports Radio 66 WFAN. Noon game tomorrow with Johan Santana on the mound, trying for his 10th win against Jason Hamill. And then the Phillies are in for 3 games, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, to close out the homestand. Frank Gore up with 1 out. Frank Gore twice as grounded to short tonight, 0 for 2. Mets have had just 3 hits tonight. They had just 4 hits last night. They've been getting some tremendous starting pitching the last few days. Ari Dickey had a bump in the road on Sunday, but otherwise, this last time around the rotation, everybody's been terrific.
I'm surprised Ike didn't get an at-bat there. You know he's going to go in for defense coming up the next inning, I would think. Maybe not.
Excellent point.
You know, Belisle's just dominant against right-handed hitters.
Right-handed hitters hitting just 207 against him.
No, I'm wrong. These left-handed batters are hitting even worse.
And Frank Gore down on the breaking ball, lost the bat, trying in vain to reach that pitch off the plate. And Belisle has back-to-back strikeouts.
He's got a late breaking slider. Jeff trying to do anything just to get a piece of the bat on the ball.
Got to use that 54-inch bat.
That's right.
So 2 out and nobody on. Here's Hank White. Henry's 1 for 2 tonight. Fly to left, single to right. Mets have a bench full of left-handed batters. And Jerry, for the moment, keeping them all in reserve here in the 7th with a 2-1 lead. And Belisle looking very solid. 1-1 to Blanco. To Blanco. Takahashi, interpreter by his side. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Swing and a miss, and Belisle strikes out the side in the 7th inning. 3 batters, 3 strikeouts. Now it's Takahashi's turn as we go to the 8th. Mets up 2-1. By Lexus, by Subway, Eat Fresh, and by the Pepsi Refresh Project. Every time you choose Pepsi, you support the Pepsi Refresh Project. 3rd straight game for Isanori Takahashi.
Takahashi pitched on a Sunday, 2 innings in that game. Keep the Mets close. Of course, pitched the 8th inning on Tuesday night after the off day, and again out there tonight.
All it took was a 1-2-3 inning last night, and the job is his. Now out of the rotation. The Mets will need a starter for Saturday to take his spot. But right now, considering the number of pitchers the Mets have gone through in this role, anybody who can take it by the horns is welcome to keep it. And I thought it was very interesting. Jerry Manuel was asked tonight what made Takahashi a good candidate for the 8th inning. He said, well, because he treats the 8th inning the same way he does the 1st inning or the 5th inning. The pressure doesn't bother him.
Translated in manager speak, he doesn't make me nervous.
Yet. Seth Smith, first man up for the Rockies, came out of the double switch. Now, Takahashi, one thing we knew about him when he came over from Japan is that he had been through the wars in pressure situations, pitching for the Yomiuri Giants, the elite team in Japan, going to the Japan series, pitching in pressure situations. And that's been one thing that's never been an issue, his ability to handle the spotlight. Smith, the former Ole Miss quarterback, and a terrific pinch hitter. And he just weaves at the curveball from Takahashi, and it's 0-2. Well, there you see the numbers. Certainly more effective as a reliever, and as we've documented many times, first time around the batting order is so much better than when he has to face guys a second time.
That being said, though, his numbers as a starter are a little bit skewed because they're either he has an unbelievable game, 6 shutout innings, or one where he gets blown out early.
Manny Acosta, Pedro Feliciano forming the backup team here in the 8th. Here's the 1-2. Swing and a miss. He got him with a slider. Takahashi fans Smith to start the 8th. 1 out and nobody on. Chris Carlin is here with the New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. Oswalt Elijah's 5 hits through 6 innings with a 2-0 lead. Here's Dexter Fowler, who's 0 for 3 tonight. Takahashi faced Fowler last night in the 8th inning. And Fowler hit a line drive to left on which Fernando Martinez made a very nice diving catch coming in toward the infield.
Forget about that catch, right? That would have changed that entire inning around.
Hernandez sitting tonight against the lefty. Undoubtedly will be back in there tomorrow against the right-hander Jason Hamill. Swing and a miss at the changeup, and it's 0-2. Here's the play from last night.
Got such a great jump on this baseball. No fear. And looked that ball right into the glove. Outstanding.
To Fowler, and it's down.
Guys, Fowler is a natural right-hander, but he hit some lefty in high school, and after the Rockies drafted him his first year in pro ball, he was kind of tooling around, hitting lefty a little bit in the cage. The next day he's in the office, and they're like, okay, you're going to be a switch hitter. So he was just doing it to mess around, and they made him a switch hitter after that.
And he has struggled quite a bit as a left-hand batter. Earlier this year when the Mets were in Colorado, they were even toying with the idea of taking away the left-hand hitting.
Now he's only 24 years old. He's a guy that grew up playing a lot of different sports. Didn't like a lot of players do today, just concentrating on one sport. And he might be a young 24 where he's going to emerge. He's got all the tools that you would want.
He rips one down the left field line, and that's a foul ball.
Guys, if you remember initially when he was batting lefty, he had kind of a split in his hand. So for some reason, his left hand and his right hand was separated by about an inch or so. And I asked him about that. He said, it wasn't planned. It just kind of happened, and it felt comfortable. I got rid of it about a year and a half ago. I really tried to get rid of it, but just trying to find his way from that side of the dish.
Well, he's from Georgia. The Georgia Peach had a split in his hands. He did pretty well.
Yeah. Down to third base. David gets in front of it. And he throws out Fowler, 2 down. So Takahashi retires the first 2. And now will take on Todd Helton, who has the only extra base hit tonight for the Rockies. He doubled to right center his last time up. Takahashi got Helton to pop up last night in the 8th inning. Randy Flores, the veteran left-hander, up in the Colorado bullpen. And Helton takes the first pitch fastball for a strike. John Neese went 7 innings tonight, allowed a run on 5 hits. He didn't walk a batter and struck out 7 in line for his 8th win of the year. And Takahashi gets ahead 0-2.
Again, this is the biggest at bat for Takahashi. Get through Helton and pass it on to K-Rod to have to deal with Mr. Gonzalez.
She did very effectively last night. 0-2. Just off the corner. All fastballs to Helton. And there is Gonzalez on deck. 1-2 from Takahashi. Hit hard, base hit. So Helton on 1 and 2 hooks the base hit into right field. His second hit of the night, and the tying run is aboard. Here's tonight's AT&T trivia question: what 2 pitchers won 10 or more games in a season for the Mets and the Rockies?
I've got that one, I believe. I don't know if he won 10 for the Mets.
We got a pinch runner here. That's Esmil Rogers, a pitcher, running for Helton, carrying the tying run. Rogers, who was just brought up last week to fill the 5th starter spot in the rotation. So now here's Gonzalez, who's 0 for 3 tonight and 1 for 7 in this series. Let's see how hard Takahashi works on Rogers here. With Gonzalez at the plate. Tying run at first with 2 down. 2-1 New York, 8th inning. And Gonzalez pops it up foul. That'll come back out of play. So a little over anxious on a first pitch slider. It's interesting. You know, you get a young player like this who's had a tremendous year, virtually unknown player to the, on a national stage, comes to New York and starts hearing about MVP talk, and the media wants to talk to him, and you wonder whether he gets a little over anxious in a series like this. Again, Blanco moves outside, and he wouldn't chase that one.
And that's an interesting point, Gary, because when you come to this town, there's 3, 4, 5 publications that want to do a story on you, as opposed to some other towns you go in and the local beat writer wants to do just a little small piece on you.
Here's the 1-1. And that fastball just missed. Takahashi giving a little glare in at Phil Cuzzy.
That's a pretty good pitch right there by Takahashi. He was given that pitch on the first 2 pitches to Helton. But if you see this one, it's just a bit outside. We've got to give Cuzzy his due. Just outside.
Here's the 2-1. Swing and a miss of the slider. And it's 2-2.
Well, again, Gary, a little over anxious on this slider. Not close. That back leg. Look how it drops out and goes backwards. Very unusual hitting style.
Taking a lot. Carlos Gonzalez making a run at MVP. Triple crown. 2-2. Takahashi checks in on Rogers, who was a step away from the bag and falls back in. You always wonder with pitchers pinch running. You did that a lot.
Yeah, you're very conservative over there on first base, absolutely. But that was good by Takahashi, just to let him know that he's watching him.
Two. That missed. Trying to go outside, and he missed inside. And a full count to Carlos Gonzalez, so that'll get an automatic start for Rogers with Tulowitzki on deck. Mike Hessman looking into the Mets dugout, asking where they want him to play, and they tell him to play behind the runner, but not too far behind.
Well, you'd have to think the way he's approached Gonzalez. The 2-1 pitch was a 2-1 slider. You'd have to think the 3-2 pitch is going to be a 3-2 slider from Takahashi.
In the dirt for ball 4, and that pushes the tying run to second base. So after the 2-out hit by Helton, Takahashi was ahead in the count, loses Gonzalez to a walk. And here comes Jerry Manuel, and he's going to bring in the right-hander to face Tulowitzki. So Manny Acosta will get the call here to try and get the final out in the 8th. Takahashi leaves after 2/3 of an inning. The call to the bullpen is brought to you by Lincoln Mercury.
Given up a run in his last 5 appearances. Ever since coming back from Buffalo, Costa has been spot on.
2 out and 2 on, and Tulowitzki the batter, and it's up and in and off the mid of Blanco, and that moves the runners to second and third. So Tulowitzki diving out of the way on the wild pitch by Acosta.
Well, you don't ever mind a pitcher thrown inside except when the catcher wants it down and away. That pitch not even close.
So that moves the tying run to third and the potential go-ahead run to second.
And for Tulowitzki, it was hit on that hand earlier in the season.
And the Mets are now going to intentionally walk him, fill the empty base, and go after Melvin Mora instead.
Well, it's a play that makes sense because Tulowitzki is their best player. Despite Gonzalez's great year, he's their most clutch player. The only problem you have is that Melvin Mora is a good veteran player, and now you have nowhere to put him in case Acosta, after throwing the first pitch to the backstop, loses his control.
So Mora comes up with the bases loaded and 2 down. The pitcher's spot is behind him, and that's why Feliciano stays busy, because of all the left-handed bats on the Rockies bench. The pinch runner Rogers is now at third, Gonzalez at second, and Tulowitzki at first. 2-1 New York, 8th inning. Costa went an inning and 2/3 against the Phillies Sunday, facing Mora. And he throws the first pitch fastball for a strike. So he got it back in a hurry. He's done a terrific job, particularly since returning from Buffalo, stranding inherited runners. He had a little hiccup in the opening game of the series in Philadelphia Friday night, when he was the final pitcher in that 6-run 8th inning. Allowed a couple to score. Fastball, and he gets ahead on Mora, 0-2.
Mora thought that pitch was up. Remember earlier in the game when Champanisi was called out on strikes on a pitch up in the strike zone, so Cuzzy has been spot on.
APT Pittsburgh paints overhead camera, certainly over the plate. Preston was whether it was high. So now Acosta ahead 0-2. This is 1-2. Brad Hoff has come out on deck. No bat if Mora can keep the inning going. One and 2 to Mora. Out of the way. Rogers, Gonzalez, Tulowitzki.
Costa's got to take one shot with that slider in the dirt. Got to get more to swing at the ball.
Trust Blanco to block it. Already been a wild pitch in the inning. 1-2. Slider off the plate. And now it's 2-2 to Mora.
And whenever you're a pitcher in this situation, bases loaded, 2 outs, Betancourt, what you have to do is you have to really treat the 2-2 count like a 3-2 count. You can't go to 3 balls. You have to make your pitch here.
Hit in the air to left field, hit well, back toward the corner. Pagan looking up, and it's out of here. Melvin Mora with a grand slam, and the Rockies lead it 5-2. Just the 3rd home run of the year for Melvin Mora, the former Met, and the 9th grand slam allowed by the Mets this year, the most in the major leagues. 4th career grand slam from Melvin Mora, and Acosta gets shot down in the 8th.
Mora got angry at that at-bat because of the high strike from Cuzzy. Decided to take matters into his own hands, and a hanging slider from Acosta cost the Mets tonight. The 2-2 slider was away, 1-2 slider away, and the 2-2 right down the middle of the plate. Sliders in this situation can hurt a pitcher more than that well-placed fastball, and major damage by Mora.
Brad Hopp, the pinch hitter, and he takes low for ball one. Takahashi retired the first two hitters in the inning.
A little hoping and wishing there, yes. Exultation.
Elton got it started with a 2-out single. Gonzalez walked. Acosta came in through a wild pitch that prompted the Mets to walk Tulowitzki to get to Mora, and Mora made them pay. One swing, 4 runs. The grand slam count for the Mets this year. Opposition 9, Mets none. Jeez. 2 runs charged to Takahashi, 2 to Acosta. And John Neese's 7-inning effort for the second straight start gets blown up in the 8th inning by the Mets bullpen. 6 runs in the 8th in Philadelphia on Friday. 4 runs in the 8th tonight. And it's not over yet. Brad Hopp draws a walk. Acosta's faced 3 batters and not retired any. Acosta stays in to face Chris Iannetta, who drove in the first Colorado run with a sacrifice fly in the 7th. Mets were up 2-0 until the 7th. Neese yielded the 1 run and then stiffened there. And the Mets bullpen unable to hold the lead for him tonight in the 8th. Hit the other way, and Iannetta's got a base hit. Of course, throwing towards second, hoping for a force. And White Hop was holding up to the 2 out. That's some bad base running. Nonetheless, the inning continues for Colorado, and the 9th man to bat in the inning will be Clint Varmus. Mets have gone 41 games without winning back-to-back games. They were hoping this was the night they might break that streak. Now they'll have to climb uphill on the 8th and 9th to do it. Acosta has been so good. We've seen a spate of this lately, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We want that down and away. That's where Henry Blanco gave this. That's where he wanted to receive the baseball and just right down the middle on a tee.
Met pitchers, relievers who have been on great rolls, not just having bad outings, but having horrid outings. We saw it with Valdez, we saw it with Parnell, and seeing it tonight with Acosta. Varmus is 0 for 3. The 9th man up in the inning. 6 straight Rockies have reached base after 2 out and nobody on. Varmus takes the fastball for ball 1. Hooked in the air, shallow left field. Pagan's not going to get there, and it lands for a base hit. Hopp is in to score. It's 6-2 Colorado. And the spigot just won't close. That'll be all for Acosta, who faced 5 batters and retired none of them. Feliciano will come on as Acosta takes his exit. Rockies have 5 home in the 8th. on SNY, the new TV home of the Yukon Huskies. Take a breath. Pedro Feliciano in to face Seth Smith, who started this inning by striking out.
Well, Pedro back to his specialization out of the bullpen. His last 2 outings have been a third of an inning.
Well, the Mets thought they had found an 8th inning solution when Takahashi worked a 1-2-3 inning last night. But just as was the case in John Neese's last start, the 8th inning proving to be a major undoing for the Mets. Probably the biggest pitch in this inning was the wild pitch on the first pitch thrown by Acosta. It changed the whole nature of the inning.
It changed everything. Instead of Acosta going at Tulowitzki, the free base on balls was issued, and then had to face Melvin Mora. Came up huge.
Past the mound, but Castillo's there to flip it to Reyes and finally put a close to the inning. But 10 men came to bat for the Rockies, and 5 of them scored. 4 of them on one swing on the former Met Melvin Mora. His 4th career grand slam. Mets get slammed again and trail 6-2. The Subway pregame live tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. only on SNY. And there is your Mercedes matchup for tomorrow. Santana going after his 10th win after a brilliant performance his last time out.
Kerry, usually the pitchers, both Hamlin and Santana, on a night game like this, when the game is 12 o'clock the next day, they're usually sent home around the 4th, 5th inning to avoid the traffic out of the ballpark and to get home and get in bed early.
Melvin Mora moves from third base to first base. Ian Stewart comes in to play third. And Rafael Betancourt will pitch the 8th inning.
Pitch last night was very impressive. Just came in for one batter and struck him out.
Do pitchers need to sleep before they pitch?
I think most of the time it's just to get out of the ballpark, get home, have a meal at a semi-normal hour.
Luis Castillo will lead off for the Mets in the bottom of the 8th. Mets nursed a 2-run first inning home run by Angel Pagan from the first all the way to the 8th. Now they're down by 4. Castillo 0 for 2 tonight, and he takes the first pitch up and away for ball 1. Well, the Mets have been able to do virtually nothing with the bases loaded this year. The opposition, major difference. 9 grand slams, most allowed by any staff in the majors. 2-0 to Castillo. Chris Carter's come out on deck to pinch hit, and then Reyes as the Mets try and fight back in the 8th.
Those are almost Pat Tabler numbers. Pat Tabler, who played with the Blue Jays and other teams, just has some of the ungodly numbers with the bases loaded.
Well, that accounts for the opposition. What about the Mets numbers with the bases loaded? There's a strike to Castillo, 2-1. Well, Matt Belisle struck out the side in the 7th inning for the Rockies. Now pitcher of record on the long side. Takahashi on the short side. Another no decision for Nice. It's like a carbon copy of his last start. 7 innings, 1 run, leaves with a lead, and the bullpen gives up a huge 8th inning.
I don't know about you. I thought he was just almost more impressive tonight.
Well, he went from 5 walks in Philadelphia to no walks tonight. Probably had as good a fastball as we've seen all year. Nice has now had 11 starts this year in which he's allowed 1 run or less. That's pretty impressive for a rookie left-hander. And yet he has just 7 wins. And Castillo down on strikes as Betancourt blows him away. That is 6 consecutive strikeouts for the Mets against 3 different pitchers. Francis struck out the last 2 in the 6th. Belisle struck out the side of the 7th. And now Betancourt gets Castillo to start the 8th.
Just a fastball right by him. To get back to Nice. And his start now, he has 7 starts this season where he's gone at least 7 innings and has not given up more than 1 run. The last person to have more than that, you have to go all the way back to the 1984 season when Dwight Gooden had 15.
And you might also note that in that same season, 1984, Ron Darling had 7. Same as Nice. 7 or more innings, 1 run or less. That's a long time ago.
It is. That's why, I mean, I keep talking about it with you. Nice is having an outstanding rookie campaign. It really is.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time that a Mets starting rookie left-hander has had this kind of season, and the guy that I think you've got to go back to is John Matlack.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 1972. That's a long time ago. I mean, there might be somebody in the interim that I'm missing, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Matlack won Rookie of the Year that year in '72. 1-1 to Chris Carter. Swing and a foul tip, 1-2.
You know, he's shown durability. He was out for that with a little hamstring there for 15 days. But other than that, he's made every start. He's been consistent. Throws strikes. Pitches well with runners on base.
He's had an occasional hiccup with the long ball. He's given up more home runs than any Met pitcher. He had the start against Arizona 2 starts back, which was not a good one. But all in all, I think that John Nice has outperformed expectations this year. Carter watches wide, 2-2.
Well, he was a guy that you didn't know physically would be able to make the call in spring training. In fact, Jerry had said that when he first saw Nice in their first preliminary warm-ups or workouts in January and February, he said he didn't look like he was a guy who was going to be able to help him this season, and he's been outstanding.
Two from Betancourt. And Carter is down on strikes. 7 consecutive Mets have struck out.
It's starting to become Seaver-like the other way around. Just a little fastball on the outside part. Not a lot of movement. But watch the glove here of Iannetta. Take that ball, all the webbing, recoiling at the speed of that pitch.
Wright, Beltran, Hessman, Francoeur, Blanco, Castillo, and Carter all striking out consecutively, all swinging. Now here's Reyes. There's 1 for 3, a bunt single, scored in front of Pagan's home run of the first. The only 2 runs the Mets have scored tonight. Since the home run by Pagan, second batter of the game for the Mets, they've had 2 more base runners. Hessman walked later in that first inning, and Blanco singled in the 5th. And that's been it. The Mets as a team since the All-Star break, coming into tonight, 24 games, batting average .216, averaging just a shade over 3 runs per game. And during that stretch, they're 8-16. Stroke foul, and it's 1-2 to Reyes.
And that's why all the talk that you hear before the season starts, just disregarded, because before the season started, the hitting was supposed to be the one given on this team that you didn't have to worry about, where they're going to get enough starting pitching and relieving, and it's been kind of upside down.
Reyes makes contact. But can he hit a fair ball? The last fair ball the Mets hit was Reyes in the 5th inning. Pagan led off the 6th by hitting a foul pop-up, and the next 7 struck out. Betancourt with a 1-2. And Reyes lifts one to right field. So the strikeout string ends, but so does the inning. 11 straight Mets have been retired. 8 in the books, 6-2 Rockies. More for the Mets and Rockies. Who you got?
Estacio at Hampton.
It's a good call. Very nice.
I'm starting to get a lot better with the 90s stuff, I'm telling you. I wasn't sure Estacio had won 10 with the Mets because I know that he was outstanding when he went over to the Rockies.
Estacio had a couple of really good years for the Mets in the early part of the last decade.
What was his nickname? He had an interesting nickname.
Mule.
The Mule. That's right.
Well, he got that. I don't know when exactly he got it, but he earned it in Colorado, where he would slog through games where he'd give up 5 or 6 runs. But, you know, at Coors Field back in the day when they had the Blake Street Bombers, it would be enough for a win.
He had a 17-win campaign like Francis we talked about earlier.
Kevin Ritz won 17 as a Rocky. Houston Street, Crowd Papa, was away from the team yesterday, now back and getting ready for the bottom of the 9th. Houston Street and his wife had their first child.
Lacey,
his wife. The child, a boy, named Ripken Street.
That's a great name.
Sounds like the Street family legacy is going to be continuing, because a child named Ripken Street has got to be a great athlete.
Or never miss a day in school.
True. Yeah. Good work ethic. Of course, Houston's father, James Street, was a tremendous college quarterback at the University of Texas back in the 60s, playing for Darrell Royal. Fowler is 0 for 4 tonight, and he takes wide from Parnell, 2-2. Bobby Parnell trying to bounce back. 2 of his last 3 outings have been dreadful. He was the major part of that 8th inning meltdown the last time Nice pitched Friday in Philadelphia. Never retired a batter, gave up 4 runs. So tell me what the emotions are. You're a young starting pitcher.
Yeah.
You've just put together back-to-back tremendous outings. You've left with a lead each time. Your bullpen's given it up. How do you avoid having your head explode?
Well,
as Fowler strikes out.
You know, that's one of the things that you learn in the minor leagues, Gary, as Parnell blows away Fowler, is that you learn not only how to win and try to work those wins in a 3, 4, 5 in a row, but you also know what to do in case you have pitched well, but the team has not performed well. The bullpen has lost the lead, and that is that, listen, you have no control after you leave the game. All you can do is your job to put your team in a position to win. And then as soon as you leave the ballpark, you call someone and go, I can't believe they can't get any outs for me. I'm styling. No one's getting some outs.
Ian Stewart up for the first time of the game.
No, Jonathan is he's been such a professional all season long. It's frustrating. Absolutely. You know, there's going to come a time maybe, you know, when they might, I don't know if they're going to limit his innings because he's such a big, strong kid. But, you know, you're just fighting for these wins. And he's also talked about it today, other than Jaime Garcia. Now, Takahashi has 7 wins, also some in relief. You know, his 7 wins are second as a rookie pitcher. He has a chance that if he makes a nice run of it, he's going to be considered, you know, in the top 5 or top 7 of Rookie of the Year. Those are good things.
I know when you pitched, the standards were a little bit different, but I wonder if something like that happens to you on a regular basis, does it make you want to strive to figure out a way to go deeper into games, to pitch that 8th and 9th inning yourself?
Yeah, well, I think those are things that when he, right now, I would say no, Gary. It's so hard to really be that myopic when you're looking at your season, because all really you're doing is trying to stay in shape, be ready for every start, you know, go to the wall every single time. But I think that'll be something that in the offseason, when he has his workouts, I know that I used to use games like this to make sure that you did those extra 20 minutes on the bike or whatever you had to do to make sure that physically you were putting yourself in a place where you maybe even went just one more inning.
Stewart hooks one foul.
I mean, if you think about it in this way, the Mets have struggled now in the 8th inning, of course. It's well documented. But if you can get 3 more outs in your game, limit your pitches in some way, you get the ball straight to K-Rod. It's a big difference.
Maybe tonight 1 more out would have been enough.
There you go.
2-2 to Stewart, batting for the first time in the game. And late swing foul. 99 on the fastball from Parnell. Stewart started at third base last night, went 1 for 3. He's been the regular there. On the ground to the right side and through. And Stewart has himself a 1-out hit. Let's check in with the studio, see what's coming up on Lincoln Mercury Postgame Live with Chris and Bobby. All right, guys, here's Carlos Gonzalez, who drew that walk in the 8th inning. The last man that Takahashi faced. 1 out and 1 on. And Parnell throws a fastball for a strike. Just for reference, talking about Neese and his 7 wins. Leading rookie wins leaders in Mets history. Number 1, Jerry Koosman, who won 19 in 1968. And, well, let's face it, he got jobbed for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Because Johnny Bench had all the hype. One of the writers split his vote. At that time, it was just a straight vote.
Yeah.
It wasn't the 3-2-1 thing they have now. Bench got 10.5. Koosman got 9.5.
Wow.
Should have at least split the award with Bench, who had a good rookie season.
Yeah.
But Koosman was better. 19 and 12, 2.08. Wow. For a bad Mets team in 1968 to finish 9th.
You had to have a 2.08 to get those 19 wins.
Well, especially in 68.
That's when Seaver told me that a 3-1 count was a Mets rally.
Second, Doc Gooden, who won 17 games in 1984, 17 and 9. Third, Seaver, 16 and 13. He won Rookie of the Year in 67. And then fourth was Matlack, who went 15 and 10 in his Rookie of the Year season in 72.
What was his ERA that year?
2.32.
Wow.
Yeah, Matlack was, I mean, he was good. Funny thing about Matlack, he always seemed to lose that 2-1, 3-2 game. Didn't win as many games as a Met as you would have thought for how well he pitched.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was looking at the book one day, I didn't realize Matlack had more shutouts than Dwight Gooden.
Marvelous.
With less games pitched.
Yeah.
I think when you are a guy like Jonathan Neese, after coming back from an injury, your look is to get in the double figures. Get in the double figures for wins that season. And these last 2 games certainly could have been wins in his direction.
Gonzalez hits one out to left, and Pagan standing right under it. And that is the second out. So 2 away now. Tulowitzki, who's been on base 3 times in a row. It was Tulowitzki who Manny Acosta came on to face in the 8th inning with 2 out and 2 on. First pitch to Tulowitzki was high and inside and went off Henry Blanco's glove to the backstop for a wild pitch. That induced Jerry Manuel to have Tulowitzki intentionally walked. Next man up was Melvin Mora. Acosta got ahead of him 0-2. Mora worked his way back into the at-bat and then hit the grand slam that gave the Rockies the lead.
Well, my feeling is when you're a relief pitcher or any kind of pitcher and you come into a difficult situation, if your first pitch misses that badly, that's always got to be a little bit of nerves.
Slow ground ball. And Reyes comes in, throws out his shortstop counterpart. And that ends the top of the 9th. Now the Mets come up in the bottom of the 9th with Pagan, Wright, and Beltran to face Houston Street. to you by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. By Rums of Puerto Rico, the rum capital of the world. By Volkswagen. By Bigelow Organic Iced Teas, available in 4 refreshing flavors. By Blimpie, America's Sub Shop. And people are talking about Hyundai Uncensored. See what they're saying at Hyundai.com. Houston Street on in a non-save situation to try and finish things for the Rockies.
Well, his last 2 outings have been scoreless, but a couple outings ago against Pittsburgh, he gave up 3 runs and 2/3 of an inning. 7 saves and 9 opportunities.
Now pitching for the first time as a dad. Got to keep food on the table. Here's Angel Pagan to lead off the last of the 9th and try to bunt his way on.
It's the 3rd time that Angel has attempted the bunt in this game to go along with his 2-run bomb.
Since Pagan hit the 2-run homer, second batter of the game for the Mets have had 2 more base runners. Only 1 base runner since the first inning. David Wright has had another fruitless night at the plate, waits on deck. This night of all nights for David might have been the most troubling one we've seen all year. Pagan hits one well out to center field. Fowler going back to the track, and he has enough room to make the catch right at the 408. Pagan making a bid for a second home run and came up just short. Tonight after the postgame at 1 a.m., catch the only New York sports news and highlight show in town. Can you believe that Darrelle Revis is in the headlines again? We've got Isaiah rescinding his contract. That's interesting. And Carmelo, New York. Hello. Geico Sports Night tonight after the postgame at 1 a.m. right here on SN1.
I'm just glad I didn't have to talk about Revis tonight.
David is 0 for 3, struck out all 3 times against Jeff Francis, and that's the troubling part. Not so much that he had great numbers against Francis, but soft-tossing lefties, those are the games that usually get right going. And you can understand how frustrated he was after that 3rd strikeout that he went back in the dugout and eviscerated his bat. And faring no better here against Houston Street. Now the 0-2 to right, and it's up and away. David struck out 140 times last year. That was a career high. He's up to 124 already this year, with more than a quarter of a season to play. And one more. Golden sombrero for David Wright. Something you rarely hear connected to David Wright at Citi Field. A few boos.
Breaking pitch here from Houston Street down. The one thing about being a starting player, and Jerry has talked about if they won the game today, he was going to try to give either Wright or Reyes a day off. Well, they might not win this game, might need a day off anyway.
Mets are down to their final out with Carlos Beltran at the plate. Beltran is 0 for 3, grounded out twice and struck out. He's just 1 for his last 19. Second time this year that David Wright has struck out 4 times in a game. It happened to him back on May the 9th against the Giants. Check swing, foul ball off the bat of Beltran. And the Mets last night got a great pitching performance from Mike Pelfrey and fashioned that into a 1-0 victory despite only 4 hits. It looked like they might be able to do something similar tonight with only 3 hits. But the Rockies rallying for 5 against the Mets bullpen in the 8th inning. And now the Mets are down to their final strike. One-two from Street. And Beltran just got a piece of that. 2-2 now to Beltran. Noon game tomorrow with Johan Santana on the mound. And Beltran smacks one out to center field. Back goes Fowler. Plenty of room. And the ball game is over. The final 14 Mets were retired tonight. Make it 15 after a single by Henry Blanco leading off the fifth. And the Rockies have evened up the series on the strength of a 5-run eighth inning as they win tonight 6-2.
And the Mets still haven't won consecutive games in 42 games. Street, Betancourt, and Belisle, no hits in the last 3 innings with 6 strikeouts. Wasted an outstanding effort by Jonathan Neese. The Takahashi in the bullpen faltered, and really the only offense for the Mets tonight, 11 Ks they had, was the 2-run home run by Angel Pagan.
There's your Audi game summary. Neese was marvelous. Pagan hit a home run. Not much else to talk about as the Mets again fall a game below 500 and now 9.5 behind the Braves. We'll be right back.